Hello, my name is Xavier. I'm a professor of sustainability marketing at the University of Surrey. Alex asked me to say a few words, and I prepared a presentation for you of about 20 minutes where we look at how we can use marketing to help you achieve more sustainable tourism. I wish I could be with you in Bali. I think it would be great to be at your event. Unfortunately, circumstances prevent me from doing that. And also sometimes I think I should not fly to talk about sustainable tourism. It feels like a strange thing to do. So I'm hoping that the slides help you on this journey. I will first tell you 5 ways in which you can use sustainability marketing to reduce your impacts. For example, you need to first ask nicely. You need to make sure that your communications are well presented. We know that when you use your logo as part of your sustainability communications, as opposed to just presenting it in plain language, people are more likely to respond. And you need to avoid words like be eco-friendly or we buy sustainable whenever possible, because people tend to not understand those and they look very vague. You see the example here about these cups where it says drink in the view. Stunning, isn't it? We aim to keep it that way. And then it tells you they use natural free detergents and blah blah blah. And you turn it round and at the back it says, and all you have to do is put me in the bin. The message here is, I have done most of the work. I'm communicating the message to you on the cup in a place where it's likely you're going to read it because you'll have it in your hand. And I'm making it sound very easy for you to respond. All you have to do is put me in the bin. You also need to be trustworthy, and by this I'm saying that you need to show evidence of what you do and you need to communicate with empathy. So if you said, I am a really sustainable person, people will not necessarily like you, because for the same reason that if you said, I'm a really handsome or really beautiful person, people wouldn't really like you. But you can say that about your own suppliers. You can say, my suppliers are great. Meet my great British suppliers in this case, or you could say the same for Thailand, Laos, China, or Mexico, wherever you happen to be based. And the idea with that is that you emphasize that your products are brilliant, and by saying your products are brilliant, implicitly you're also saying that you are brilliant, but you're not saying it directly. So I'm suggesting that in your website you write in first person, you show a photo of yourself as the owner manager, and you provide testimonials of your food suppliers, talk about the origin of your food as a way of selling your sustainability. You can also be honest. Forget those messages that says, please reuse the towel, it says Planet Earth. Most of your customers don't believe in those anymore. They know you're doing it because you want to save money. In an experiment we did with more than 9,000 customers in Spain, we basically used the initial message, every day towels all over the world are being used, please decide to contaminate or not. And then we changed the message, and the new message just said, reuse me tomorrow just like at home. And we found a substantial change in the number of people that responded to the message because they found the new message simpler, cleaner, much easier to understand. You can also be humorous, and this is particularly well used for messages where people don't necessarily understand what you want to say, or where they think that the thing you're asking them to do is something they don't really like. So the message here was about smoking. There's a message from a forest, and the message was written particularly thinking of children. Of course, children are not supposed to smoke. The message was so the children will get the parents to stop smoking. And it was very successful as a message because the children tend to be the best police for parents' behavior, and therefore this was a more successful message than a boring traditional message that said you will pay a fine if you find smoking in this particular forest. And the final idea here is that you need to be much more engaging. You can communicate personal values, and you can communicate that you have the same values as the customers you want to attract. The message we've got here is about parents finding that their children are using too much technology and they're not engaging with the real world. And if you're a parent, you may agree with this message as well. And the result of that would be that by you agreeing with a message, you're finding that you're not just buying from a company, that is professional, of course, but you're also buying from an individual behind the company, somebody that works in the company, has similar values to you, and therefore you're more predisposed to buy products that they will be selling to you. We also can use sustainability marketing to attract more customers, and you can have a variety of messages for this, and I'm going to give you 5 examples of this. The first one is using messages that are much more unique. We know that if you communicate explicitly about the origin of your food, customers are willing to pay more for it. And we know that the companies that are doing this are also having higher sales. So don't assume that your customers will know what you talk about. Actually find a way of communicating the benefit of your product to your customer. You need to be seen, and you need to find a way that people will endorse your product. Just like when you go to the doctors and the doctor is probably going to have a diploma on their wall that shows that they are somebody who's credible, you're essentially doing the same when you're able to win some awards or some certification programs that essentially are saying to the tourist, you can trust on the message they're giving you throughout their website because there has been a third-party endorsement. You also need to make sure that you're found. Now, sustainability essentially gives you content that can be used for search engine optimization. Being very good at the technical side of things is brilliant, but you need the content actually something the customers will be looking for. Having said that, having content on its own without having a very good technical website doesn't really give you anything, because people won't be able to find you either because they don't know what they're looking for. You need messages that will be remembered. Now, before today, I looked at the websites from companies that will be in your location and companies that are known for sustainability where you are. And what I found is one of your companies had a message that talked about minimizing waste by evaluating operations and ensuring they're fit for purpose. Now, this is not a bad translation. This is simply what that company said. And what we found is that clearly this is not the kind of message that first will be understood by customers. And second, even if they understand it, this is not a message that is meaningful to them. So you need to make sure that the message you write, both in your social media as well as on your website, are messages that people feel they can share, messages that have meaning for them. Technically, this would be called sticky messages. And you also need to give me messages that tell me what I can look forward to, not what I've just missed. And by these I mean that if in your locality there is a really interesting festival, and it just happened yesterday, and that's why you're putting photos on Facebook or Instagram today about what happened yesterday, essentially what you're telling me is that now I have to wait 12 months until I can see that festival again. So you need to send me messages of things that will be happening next month, not things that just happened, so I still have the opportunity to come and book. And finally, you need to be shared. You need to think of reasons or incentives where your customers will talk nicely about you. You need to organize social media competitions and so on. Now, what you're doing here is you're using sustainability again as content to organize very traditional marketing communications. But because traditional marketing communications with no content essentially is spam, what you're trying to do here is provide something is much more meaningful. So here's a blog from somebody that was shared 188 times on a website called 60andMe about going on yoga holiday in Bali. And 60andMe is a website for women who are older than 60 years old and who are saying, now that my children have left home and I've got life and time for myself, I want to remember the kind of person that I am and I want to enjoy my retirement. Thank you very much. And in this case, because there's a link quite often between people that practice yoga and being vegetarian and being a more sustainable kind of person, there was a way of trying to link the two things together. I'd like to share some thoughts with you about how to improve customer satisfaction through sustainability marketing. Here's 5 ideas that I've worked with before. First of all, you need to make customers feel good. The example you got in here is from a booklet that's called "And Who Made My Breakfast?" And you keep turning pages, and in each page you've got on the one side a photo of your supplier, and on the other side and a text explaining what that supplier supplies to this particular hotel. And this example is from Ireland, but clearly this is something that can be applied anywhere in the world. The idea is emphasizing the quality of your produce, usually from local producers and people that could be visited. What we've seen in this particular case is the customers are much more satisfied with the quality of their breakfast as a result of the communication. They didn't change the suppliers are the same. They've now just found a way of making the suppliers much more visible. So these menu descriptions, the provenance statements, cross-selling by showing how some of the suppliers can be visited, all of this really makes the customers feel like it's much better for them, and the customer hasn't had to do anything different. You can also use appealing language. The example you got in here is about storytelling. And this is something, again, that can be applied anywhere. This is an example from camping. And what they're trying to show to you is not that campsites are very comfortable. We all know they're not. Or that sleeping outdoors can be, really good fun. What they're saying is this is really exciting, and particularly when you're targeting families. The photo you can see here in the middle is all about how your kids are going to have a really great time. The message you're selling here is you need to have appealing messages first, and then you need the sustainability backing afterwards. So you need that storytelling approach. And when I talk about the bird menu here, it's simply a cue to remind myself of telling you a short story, and that is from a cafe where they had a food menu, a drinks menu, and they chose to create a bird menu. And the bird menu essentially was a play with words. What was happening here is that this cafe had bird feeders, and birds could come and eat food from those bird feeders, and the customers quite liked doing that. And the bird menu have photos of the different species of birds that come there, and as a result of these, the customers spend longer at the cafe, hoping to see more varieties of birds and learn the names of those types, and as a result of these, they were spending more money there. Now, they didn't sell that to you based on biodiversity. They sold it to you based on the fact that this is appealing and it's attractive. You need to tell customers the benefits for them. The benefits of fresh food, trustworthy food, more enjoyable food sell much more than talking about sustainable food. So you can apply these in a variety of ways. You can see the two photos you've got here of food. These are vegan dishes, right? And for many customers, if you told them, I'm going to serve you vegan food, they would say, well, I don't really know what it means, but I'm feeling like I'm missing out. Same situation with kitchen waste. I remember an example I work with where they said, we're really proud of reducing the amount of waste that goes to landfill by 12 tons per year. We're now treating it in our gardens. And the customers were thinking, well, the gardens must be terrible. So the message now that we've got is our customers like the fact that we've got very beautiful flowers in our garden. The secret is 12 tons of compost. Now, anybody who has done some gardening knows what compost is and where it comes from, and the people that don't know probably don't really want to know either. Same with roof insulation. The example you've got here on the right-hand side is from another hotel. They used to tell customers about the CO2 emissions and how much energy they've saved and so on by insulating the roof. Essentially, the message that really worked for those customers was that the material they've insulated the roof with was the wool from sheep's wool. And essentially the message sounded a lot better when you said, our sheep have given up their winter woolly coat to keep you warm at night, sleep tight. So you can have a variety of messages like this that work a lot better because they're much closer to the customer's emotional feelings. You need to make it easy for customers. The example we've got in here, again, can be applied in a variety of places. This is from a half marathon. People use more than 60,000 bottles in this half marathon. And the idea was they were not putting them in waste bins. The way to actually get them to put them in waste bins as they're running was to create basketball hoops. You can see here there is a basketball hoop, and there are customers that are much more likely to try to score and get 2 points in their basketball hoop while they're running, and that actually gives them a boost of morale and energy. Whereas before there used to be signs that simply said, please recycle, please reuse, blah, 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 and the customers were really not responding. So try to make the sustainability action the easiest thing that the customers can do. And help customers take decisions. The example you got in here, for example, some Nepalese older women in particular do not like being photographed. Always ask them before you take a photo. You need to think, at what point in time in my customer journey is it going to be useful for me to give messages like this to my customers? What does my customer need to know about sustainability before they book? What do they need to know after they've booked, but before they travel? What information do they need to know when they arrive to your country, or during your visit, or after they've left it? And so by figuring out which messages are best placed at different points in the customer journey, you can make sure that you adapt your messages, and also the customers find them, that they give information that is useful at that particular point in time. We're now going to look at 4 examples on how you can use sustainability marketing to increase the money that your customers spend at your business or at your destination. The first example is about making customers feel special. Every single one of us has received leaflets, brochures, and it's very difficult to make those feel special anymore. In this particular example from the part of England where I live now, these birds that you can see here, this bird is called a puffin. And during the month when these birds are in my local area, the cafes near where I live don't sell you cappuccinos, they sell you capuffincinos. And capuffincinos is basically a play with words between a cappuccino and a puffin. And the idea is that the chocolate sprinkles on top of your cappuccino are in the shape of a puffin, as a way of celebrating that these birds are being born. And this is much more likely to remind you, both as a resident as well as a visitor, that it's worthwhile visiting this place because this is the right moment of the year. And it's much more effective than giving people a leaflet. And so that's another form of marketing. You give customers things to do. And so, for example, what you're trying to do here is upselling. This is an example of the 50 things to do before you are 11 3/4 year old. Why 11 3/4? Because it's fun. It's more fun than saying before you're 12. And if you look at the list, it's got very simple things in here, like climbing a tree, camping in the wild, building a den, skipping a stone on the water in a lake or a river. All these things that actually children used to do many years ago, and they now probably don't do very often. The idea here is that you get children to tick as many boxes as they can, and by doing a lot of these things and ticking many of the boxes, they need to spend longer on their holiday. You can see that the activities are all for free, but if you think about it, the main expenditure of your tourists is not with activities, it's with accommodation and with food. So what you're getting here to do is that the customers either stay longer or they repeat and come back to your location. You get to improve the experience of your customers, and you do this by, for example, providing activities that will make the customer again feel different. You can see from the photo at the bottom that customers come here because of the beach. They don't choose this hotel for other reasons. But once they're here, one of the things they like is that the kitchen has got a vegetable garden. And the vegetable garden is used by the chef, and the chef comes out at 6 p.m. every afternoon and collects the last few vegetables they're going to use for dinner. And the chef at that point in time will talk to the customers, will show them the vegetables, and what happens as a result is that more of your customers stay for dinner because more of your customers feel that by having talked to the chef and having seen the actual vegetables that will be used, now they have a closer emotional connection with the things that will be eaten later on. So what you've managed to achieve is that your customers have become the protagonists. You can also package the services. This is not a sustainability example, but it's still an example of how you can put things together. most business travelers now choose to travel with very little luggage, usually hand luggage. So what Westin hotels all over the world now do is that for $5 they rent you trainers and they rent you running clothes. And as a result, you don't have to have all those sweaty clothes in your business traveler hand luggage, but you can use them and you can enjoy some exercise while you're traveling. And they've realized that most business travelers travel too much, don't have enough time to exercise, and therefore this is something they value. Again, where you've made the real money is in selling the rooms, not necessarily in renting the equipment. The final section looks at how you can use sustainability marketing to increase loyalty and reduce your seasonality. And you've got 4 more examples in here. First example is linked again to how to make people aware. So when you make people aware of something that they have done and is very easy for them, they're much more likely to think highly of you. This is a plastic bench, and when you get to this bench, you see a sign that says, "Well done. Every bottle you have recycled in the car park helps us to actually produce plastic benches like this so you enjoy the view." A message that starts with the words "well done" is a much better received message than a message that starts with the words "don't do something." And you need to remember that the customers are actually likely to forget their waste when they're sitting down and having a picnic in a bench like this. They're not likely to throw their waste in the middle of their walk, because usually they tend to have much of their waste in their rucksack at that point in time. So this is a good example of how to do timely communication as well as reinforce a positive message. You need to weatherproof your offer. Many of your websites don't tell me that there is a monsoon, that there is high season, that there is low season, that maybe you've got mosquitoes or midges, that it may rain, they may be too hot. You need to tell me what are the exciting things to do in your location in January, in February, in March, in April. And when it's the coldest month, actually that's the best month for taking photos because the sky is the clearest. And when it's monsoon season, it's likely to be the month where you've got fewest mosquitoes, and if it's warm enough, you can enjoy doing yoga outdoors and listening to the sound of rain that will be very calming. And so on. You need to find reasons to tell people to come when it's low season. Linked to this, you need to give me a calendar. Tell me about the different birds, the flowers, the festivals, the seasonal food, what your garden will look like, and you need to invest money in good photos. Or you need to organize competitions so your customers allow you to use the photos that they created and you give them something in return. These calendars are very helpful as a way of getting people to realize that they can come back at a different time of year and the place will be just as beautiful. The final example comes from a lady who's over 80 years old and she's called Mary, and she also lives near where I live here in the UK. And she told me that with the customers she likes, not everybody, she helps them collect some flowers and she presses the flowers for them, and she asks the families to draw some postcards and then to write their address in an envelope. And the week before Christmas, she sends you the photos your children pressed, the flowers your children pressed, and she puts them in the postcard your children drew, and she puts it inside the envelope your children hand wrote the address to, and she sends it to you with an offer of 15% discount if you book before the 15th of January. The reason why I'm giving you this example is because you don't have to be very technologically minded to be able to use marketing and sustainability together. You need to decide to do something that is appropriate to the needs and realities of your business. In summary, we can use sustainability communication to tell us about the values of your organization, to tell us about unique products that your company has. We know that large companies are very good at marketing, and sometimes they're not very good at the sustainability side of things. And we know that many of the small firms are very good at sustainability, but they don't know how to communicate it. I think both types of companies need help with sustainability communication, Very often marketing has been used for the wrong reasons, to sell products that people didn't need. And what I'd like you to do together with me is to find ways that we can use sustainability and marketing to achieve some good. Thank you very much.